Morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We'll be starting shortly. We're just waiting for a few more people to join, and then we will get going. For those of us who've just joined us, we're just waiting for a few more people to join the session, and then we will start the webinar. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so that's been a few minutes. We'll have others join us as we go through. We'd like to welcome you all this morning. Thank you for joining us this morning for our webinar. CREST exams are changing, how to prepare and what you need to know. We're really glad that you could join us this morning to hear all about how we are transforming our exams and products portfolio. Just so that you're all aware, this session is being recorded. So do feel free to keep your mics and cameras off, and we will be sharing post-event details on our website and through our social media, so you'll be able to share it with others who aren't able to attend the live event today. Throughout the session, obviously you'll be hearing lots from our speakers. We do have a Q&A at the end, so if you've got those burning questions that you want to ask us that have come out from what we're talking about today, please do put them in the Q&A chat function, and we will have some time at the end to answer those. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our hosts today. My name is Andrew Collinson. I'm the head of marketing and engagement here at CREST. Joining me this morning is our CEO, Nick Benson, and our senior product manager in our skills and certifications team, Heigor Freitas. And I'm also delighted to be joined today by three of our assessors. So thank you to them for joining us. We have Ian Lovering from DXC, Ben Turner from LRQA Netitude, and Tim Reed from Centrium. So we've got a jam-packed agenda for you today, so we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to hand it over to Nick, who will be giving us the first part of today's webinar. So Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Really pleased to have you with us today. We feel an important update, and an update that we're very proud of, that helps to explain to our community of exam takers and future exam takers just what we've been up to the last couple of years and why we are really proud of the outcome. But it has been a challenging journey, and we want to share some of that with you. So why have we been doing this, and what are our key objectives? So yeah, please feel free to add the icons in. We wanted to do a number of things. We want our content to be up to date. It sounds obvious, but we want it to be up to date. We wanted there to be a very realistic chance that if you're skilled and prepared to take the exam, you can pass it first time. We wanted to create a platform that is scalable and cost efficient so that we can focus on our pricing. That badge of honor status that I hope you all feel that you have with CREST exams, we want to make sure we keep that and strengthen it even. And importantly, we want to make sure that the exams can be globally scalable. In all of these areas, sorry, if you could just go back a slide quickly. In all of these areas, we had some challenges, and there's various things that we'll talk about in the session today, which explain to you why we needed to make changes to achieve these things. And it's really important for those that aren't aware to be cognizant that we are a not-for-profit and we're a mission-based organization. That sets us apart from most other players in the certification space in the UK and outside of the UK. We have a mission to provide mechanisms to demonstrate skill and competence for both companies and individuals globally. As a mission-based organization, we measure impact, and impact increases the more scale you have and the more jurisdictions you can operate in. So that was really important for us. And the systems that we were operating to previously were creating a barrier to that. So in all of these areas where you can see we had key objectives, we had some things that we needed to work on to make it as optimal as possible to achieve our mission. Thank you. Next slide, please. So why is comparison challenging? So a lot of people will say to me, you know, are you like this organization or like this organization? And in every case, really, the answer is, well, not really. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So large scaled certification providers, of which you'll all be familiar, do operate their exams essentially internationally and globally. They have economies of scale, which enable them to manage their pricing. And they offer generally training that is outsourced to other providers or large scale programs. And they are often very large commercial businesses with very significant investment pots. And all of those things we want to be, which is scaled across the globe, fantastic scale training offers. The bit we miss there is that very large investment pot as a relatively small non-profit. But the rest of those things we are trying to compete with. And then if you look at the smaller niche players that sometimes will operate just in one country out of one or two locations, where CREST was a number of years ago, we don't really see ourselves in that space anymore. But we do see ourselves sticking to the principles of security and quality. So it's really super important that our exams are still highly secure. They are used in many regulatory schemes around the world. And again, that does set us apart from the bigger players that sometimes can focus on profit and scale at the expense of security. So we are trying to get the best of those two models. We're trying to be scaled, offering opportunity to those in lower income countries, middle income, around the world, to be able to take these very high quality exams. We have a lot of interest from regulators around the world for our certifications. So we need that scale. But at the same time, we need to keep our strengths from before. We need the badge of honor that comes along with an exam that is hard and is hard to achieve in a low security or easier to achieve in a low security environment. So we need to be secure, which really comes along with proctoring in person on a small scale, whilst having a portfolio that is globally scalable. So what we'll try and talk to you about in this session is how we've tried to achieve those sometimes conflicting objectives, and we think we've come up with a solution which is the best that we can, and is actually proving itself already with this launch of CRT, as Heigor will talk to, but does have some compromises, which will, again, the important thing here, we want to be transparent with you to explain our choices so that you can understand them. Not everyone will always agree with them, but at least perhaps you will understand them. Okay, on to the next piece. I think I'm going to now pass over to Heigor.
Thanks, Nick. Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what is the scope of this transformation. It's a big program. We're looking into our exams portfolio, and basically the scope is around focusing on our exams that have a practical component to it. Next slide, please. So these exams who have a practical component to it are the ones that have been operating on a legacy platform. We're looking to a new system, into a new platform that will make much easier for us to update those exams, keeping the content refreshed. And you can see here in blue all those exams that I'm referring to. It has a huge impact on our penetration testing and red teaming exams. We have started this transformation journey. We have already launched CRT. We have also launched our written exams for CCT Inf and CCT App, and there is more to come. Over to Nick.
Thanks, Heigor. So I'll just now try and give you a little bit of a potted history of the last few years. So you may not have seen a lot in the outside world, but we've been doing a huge amount of work over the last few years to get to the point where we've just got to. And a lot of it has been trial and error because of what I described earlier, which is we're trying to find a solution that really didn't exist before, where you can really have strong confidence over the security of the exams whilst having this modern scalable platform. So back in 2020, as we all know, COVID hit, and that started this process of all large certification providers thinking about, well, how do we modernize our offering so that you can enable a more flexible approach to exam delivery? And we started by delivering a replacement to CRT, which we termed CRSA in Pearson VUE test centers. Now, whilst that looked promising, it did turn out in the end that the Pearson VUE test center infrastructure was at that point not able to deliver the candidate experience we required, and therefore we had to withdraw that from the market. It just wasn't ready, and I'll come back to that in a moment. We then tried another option, which was to deliver using what's called Pearson VUE on VUE, which is a hybrid model where you can deliver the exams through the test centers, but also people could take them at home. And whilst the performance was actually very good there, we had a problem with security. The at-home model, we could not get comfortable that we could deliver it to the level we required because, as I said, we can't compromise the badge of honor point and the regulator requirement to know that the person that sat the exam was the person they expected it to be, and it is extremely difficult for them to cheat. So we then, within 2022, again, we looked at another option. We went and we brought in a set of consultants to do a market scan, investigations and proposals on could we knit together some other products that are out there, proctoring, hosting, etc., in a sort of software as a service model integrated together to achieve all of our outcomes. And again, the answer was potentially, but it was complex, costly, and would be very time consuming to create, and we'd end up with a little bit of a monster afterwards potentially, and we were still not 100% confident around the security. So again, we took stock, we were resilient, we didn't take no for an answer. But so in 2023 we started again, and by this point we went back and spoke to Pearson VUE again, and the good news was that they had made significant investments in their network, and we tried again to see if we could deliver the model within Pearson VUE test centers. And that brings us up to the point today whereby, you know, we did finally find a solution that we felt was ticked enough of our objectives, and where we made compromises, we could accept them for us to be able to launch this model. And I think one of the contexts that's really important here is that during all this period of time, you may not have seen a lot of these changes, and you would have seen the consequence of us using a legacy platform that is sort of traditional infrastructure, hosted infrastructure, which was very difficult for us to change, very difficult for us to develop, very costly for us to develop, and hard for us to update content. So all of these things we were very much hoping in each case would be the solution, but as is the case when you're trying to push into areas where others haven't yet created a solution that fits the needs, you do find sometimes that you take some roads that then need to be reversed. The good news is, if we now go on to the next slide, is we did find a solution that, as we say, we're very proud of. So what we've rolled out, starting with CRT, is a model within the Pearson VUE test center. Now, Pearson VUE are the market leaders globally in this. They have proven to be an excellent partner over the last couple of years. It has been challenging again because we have been pushing them to work with us to do things that have not been done before, and they have responded well. We have identified around about 1,000 test centres. There are, I think, 3,500 to 4,000 in total, and we did an awful lot of research to work out which of these centres could support our practical exams, which are necessarily increasing in complexity relative to a simple multi-choice exam. And we have now started to roll out amongst over 70 countries. And it does give us that in-person proctoring solution that we were looking for. Now, what you may be aware of is that Pearson VUE does currently allow physical notes and books to be brought into some test centres for one of their clients, a very large client. Now, we did explore this with them, but actually they ceased offering that solution some time ago. We have obviously inquired down that route, and therefore, because that has not been an option, and we know how important it is for our candidates to be able to bring things with them, we have developed this solution that we call CREST Drive, and one of the assessors will be able to explain a little bit better than I can how that will work later in the session. But importantly, it does allow the upload of electronic files that can be accessed during the exam itself. Now, this is highly innovative. It's not something that's been done before with Pearson VUE. We have had to build our own platform to make it achievable, and we're really pleased about the step we've been able to take with this. Not perfect, but a whole load closer to giving the candidate the experience that is a good one within the exam. And just very briefly to explain that our content hosting has been completely transformed. We are now using infrastructure as a service for our exams. We have a much more scalable and efficient process for generating new exam content and rolling it out, which means we'll be able to do a much more regular cycle of content update in the future, which obviously is really important for the relevance of the exams, but also from a security perspective to have content that you can rapidly deploy if you need to. So with all of this in mind, you can see a quote down there from the Pearson VUE project team. This is not just us saying it. And just in the last week, we've had the opportunity to present to a get together called the E-Association International Conference, where we'll be co-presenting with Pearson VUE this project that both organisations are very proud of in terms of the trailblazing nature of how we're delivering this particular type of exam. I will say that we're not stopping here. There's more that we want to do, and we do think there will be a future where securely exams can be taken, for instance, even in the home, even potentially with laptops brought back into the equation. It's not quite there at the moment, but we won't rest on our laurels, and we will continue to look at continued innovation in this space. And at this point, I'm going to hand back to Heigor.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, so we took this opportunity as well to look at the candidate journey and their experience. So we're constantly looking at the feedback we've got, and with more exams in more locations, this data is becoming really, really valuable. So one of the things that we are also looking at and improving is on how candidates understand the exam that they're about to take. There are a lot of resources that have been revised and improved, and some new resources introduced as well. So we are refreshing and updating our syllabi. We provide notes for candidates as well, which give them a good understanding of what to expect on the exam, how the exam is composed, what is the structure, what is the format. So very good information to help them in their preparation. Sample questions, sample scenarios as well as part of the preparation. Some top tips that we like to work with assessors and professionals who have taken the exam before, and try and share these top tips with our candidates as well. And Nick mentioned CREST Drive, which for some of our exams, the next one's going to be InfiniApp, actually, the one when we're going to introduce this functionality for the practical exam. So we want to give them also an opportunity to try out the candidate machine before they actually go to the exam. That's great improvement in terms of their preparation. They can go and try, they can go and experiment and get a feeling of what the exam environment will look like. They can test the tools as well. And I think that that's a big changer as well in the way that they are preparing. We're also looking to learning and training. CREST has partnered with training providers in the past, and we have recently relaunched our approved training providers program. So if you go, I invite you all to go to CREST website and check out our new page, our search mechanisms as well, where you can look for training providers based on the exam you're planning to take or based on the region where you're based. We also give information about the training modalities that they offer. So quite a big improvement as well in terms on how we are expanding these training provider programs so we can support our candidates on their preparation. And then when it comes to the registration and taking their exam, I think the big change, again, we're talking about the introduction of CREST Drive. So when candidates register for the new exams, they will be able to update their files to this drive and then have access to all of those during the exam, which again, it's a big change and it's a big improvement in terms of how they can prepare, how they can test and experiment things ahead of actually the day when they have to take the exam. And we're also going to be introducing Credly badges to CREST certification, so we're quite excited about that as well. I'm a big fan of badges, and I know that our community really likes them as well, so we're going to be introducing these badges, and we're really happy and looking forward to this. So now I would like to spend like a few moments talking about specific exams, so the ones that we are focusing right now. The first one of those is the new CRT exam, which has been launched already. It is live since November last year, and we've made significant improvements as well. We've been looking into the feedback that we've been getting in the past years. We, as part of this transformation as well, in terms of technology and how we could improve the experience in general for our candidates. So in terms of the exam structure, I wanted to highlight the change in the way that we are assessing candidates. The previous CRT exam was mainly focused on multiple choice questions. Now we have single word answers as well. So it brings a little bit more variety in the way that we're testing skills in this exam. Nick talked about the expanded locations. So through Pearson VUE, we are delivering this exam. It is available now in over 70 countries, over 1,000 test sites, which is quite significant, as you can see. We spent a lot of time thinking about how we could improve the candidate's experience. So there was a lot of work behind the exam preparation and the types of resources that we could provide to our candidates. I've mentioned briefly the candidate machine. So for the CRT exam, they can test, they can experiment the candidate machine before they actually sit the exam. I think that that's a big improvement as well on their exam preparation. They know what to expect if they use this candidate machine and if they spend some time preparing for the exam. In terms of the exam itself, I think we did a lot of work on the exam layout and how questions and answers, they are all integrated now into the same exam screen, so much smoother compared to the previous version as well. And we are working to introduce CREST Drive to this exam as well, which is one thing that we always wanted since day one. When we relaunched this exam, we're already exploring with our partner Pearson VUE, as Nick has alluded to. So this is coming soon for the CRT exam, which is really exciting as well. We obviously did some work around the syllabus and content. It's an opportunity, always an opportunity for us to refresh our syllabi when we are going through these exam updates. one of the feedback that we had in the past was around the balance between infrastructure and web applications. So we've tackled that. We have a better balance now within those two sections in the exam. We took this opportunity to update some of the skills that are tested and new technologies as well that have emerged. So these are all part of the new exam, part of the new syllabus. Next slide, please. Then the next one I wanted to talk about is the new CCT Inf and CCT App exams. Again, we looked into candidate feedback and improving their experience. So in terms of the exam structure, we also looked into a series of improvements. I think the first one is that the new version of the CCT Inf and CCT App exams, it can be taken on a full day. So you still need to go through 2 sittings. You have the written exam, and then you have the practical exam, but they can all be taken on the same day if the candidate wants. We had a significant change on the scenario component. For those who are familiar with the previous version, our scenario component also had a practical element attached to it. And now the new scenario component is mainly focused on reporting writing skills, which means that we've moved the scenario component to the written exam. So now the written exam has the scenario, and then the practical exam is the one that focuses on hands-on skills, penetration testing skills. And that was also a big point of feedback from candidates who found that taking the scenario component plus the practical one on the same day at hotels was quite intensive. So now we have broken that down. They are separate, which is hopefully very good news to our candidates. We already had some good feedback from those who have taken the new written exam. And by doing that, we have also introduced more flexibility, because now we're about to launch the new practical exam for Inf and App. And when this exam is in place, candidates can choose if they want to start with the practical or if they want to start with the written. They don't need necessarily to take the written first anymore. So again, thinking about flexibility, giving as much flexibility as we can to our candidates, and it's their decision how they want to do, in which order. In terms of locations, it's the same thing here. We're delivering these exams through Pearson VUE, so over 1,000 test centers where candidates can take this exam. We also looked into how we could improve our candidates' experience. So here, they will also gonna have access to the candidate machines. They will be able to experiment and try and get familiar with the exam environment ahead of the exam, which means that they will have a better exam preparation. The practical exam is now auto-marked, which means that our time to issue results has been reduced for that exam as well. So that's also good news, and some of the feedback we've got was around that as well. We took this as an opportunity as well to review how we provide feedback as a mechanism. So our new feedback mechanism is going to provide a more detailed breakdown, which is really helpful for candidates in general, especially for those who were unsuccessful. They will know better how to prepare for the next retake. And we are introducing CREST Drive to this exam as well, as we've mentioned before. So candidates will have the ability to upload their files, their notes ahead of the exam, and access these files and resources when they are taking their exam. And we looked into the syllabus and content as well. So it's always an opportunity for us to update and refresh our syllabus. So here I'm going to hand over to Tim Reed, who is going to tell you a little bit more about what we did in terms of content.
Yeah, thanks, Heigor. So as part of this project, a full review of both the INF and the app syllabuses has been carried out. And this was done to make sure that they were up to date, comprehensive, and relevant to the specific disciplines that they're aimed at. As a result of this, both of these syllabuses have been updated to include a much wider range of attack vectors and exploitation techniques. And as part of this, changes have been made with the aim to assess a candidate's knowledge of technology seen in modern network environments. So security controls and vulnerabilities within new web development frameworks, cloud services, virtualization and containerization technologies have all been added as part of this process. Outside of the technical aspects of the syllabus, it's important to ensure that candidates are assessed on the skills required of senior members of a pen test team. And with this in mind, areas covering project management skills such as scoping, client communications, report QA have all been added to the syllabus and to the exam content. And finally, with the move to deliver these exams globally, changes have had to be made to the exam content to ensure that sections relating to law and compliance are relevant to the individual sitting the exam. And I feel that the outcome of all of these changes is that people can be confident that individuals with these certifications have the skills required to both manage and deliver pen test engagements to a really high standard. And now I think I'm going to pass on to Ben.
Cool, thanks. Morning, everyone. So yeah, just talking a little bit about CSAS, so just setting a bit of the scene. So we've been listening to our members, feedback from industry, candidate feedback, working very closely with the ILPT focus group and feedback from those guys under Matt Lorentzen, who's been doing a stellar job, and talking with our regulators. So whenever we make changes, as Nick has mentioned, we follow the same principles. We want to make sure the exam's current, relevant, it's unambiguous, candidate experience is kind of one of the most important. It's got to be second to none, and we want to have an international focus. We need to ensure that we're continually evolving with the industry. Red teaming has moved on quite significantly since the inception of the CSAS, and we want to make sure that we're keeping abreast with that as it goes on. And we want to make sure that the exam is a true accolade and it's a badge of honor, as Nick mentioned at the start. There's been a big move to things like cloud, infrastructure as code, DevOps, zero trust networks. We want to make sure the exam is a true intelligence-led exam as well, in line with all the new regulatory frameworks and things like MITRE and stuff like that. Don't panic, there's no AI in the exam yet, I will add, but so that's what I was going to want to add. In terms of the structure, so everyone will be pleased to know that we are removing CCT INF as a prerequisite for the new CSAS exam. So that's quite a big change going forward. Note that this is only for people who take the new exam in Pearson VUE. So any existing CSAS holders will still need to have a valid CCT INF to be accredited. We're moving obviously to the Pearson VUE-led delivery model. So this will enable a bigger outreach for people across the globe. It'll enable other regulators to hopefully leverage this exam as well. So with the introduction of CBEST, TIBA, FIA, CORI, ICAST, ASE, GBEST, TBEST, StarFest, ICRT, ART, that's just like to name some of them. So hopefully this will help with those as well and driving that regulation across the globe. With the new modality, candidates obviously won't be able to take their laptop in, so that's all their own toolkit. So that's one of the biggest changes, but we will be implementing the CREST drive, as has been talked about, so you can upload snippets and code tooling and tradecraft for the exam itself. But more to that will be when we add the notes for candidates on the new exam. The expanded locations, obviously that's quite a big one for this because it's moving into Pearson VUE, as Heigor has already mentioned as well, so moving to sort of 74 plus countries, etc. And so I guess in terms of the experience, that is a big thing for us, is to be able to take it almost anywhere across the globe within reason. The removal of the CCT INF as a prerequisite hopefully will be a good view for everyone. So I think that'll be, stop you having to take 3 exams every 3 years just to be sort of CBEST accredited. So that's quite a big change from an experience perspective. You won't have to do things like leave your hard drive behind for it to be wiped and all that sort of stuff, because it'll be just walk into Pearson VUE and then walk out again. And so obviously you will get a chance to use the VMs and the tooling beforehand, and you can get familiar with it. So obviously C2 tooling for this one is a big one, and making sure that you're comfortable with that when you're walking into the exam beforehand, so you can have a play, you know what to do, you know what to prepare for. Heigor's obviously talked about approved training provider as well, so we're trying to push that as well. And so in terms of syllabus and content, so we've massively revamped to modernise the syllabus, again, to include the latest techniques, advancements and specialisms in the red teaming space, a lot of the latest techniques. We're ensuring that we are adopting the threat intelligence approach first as well. We want to introduce new initial access methods, enterprise defensive products, EDR, lateral movement, and those sort of things. And we really want to make sure it's truly threat intelligence led. And so that will be different when the exam comes ahead. And obviously the candidate will be asked to use threat intelligence to lead them through the exam when the exam goes live. Cool, so that's SAS, and we'll start to talk about SAM. So in terms of the structure onto the SAM, so it's not dramatically changing. We are looking to increase the results feedback element, so the candidate will know if they fail, which part they failed on, so which things they need to sort of look up, which things they need to go and do a bit more research on. So it'll hopefully give them a better feel and improved experience overall. So we're also talking about some of the modality of it, sort of multiple parts and how you take them. But again, none of that is confirmed yet. And hopefully we'll come back to you on the exact details of that when we go to relaunch the exam. Expanded locations, talked about that, obviously staying in Pearson VUE, so that's great. In terms of an improved experience, so we are revamping the notes for candidates. So one of the things for the CSAM is the pre-reading material. I think currently today there's one thing listed on the website. So we want to make sure that that gets updated. I think we have to remember the CSAM exam when it first came out was a fairly new thing to industry. So the role obviously has evolved quite substantially, and hopefully there'll be better reading material that we can prepare and provide to candidates on the preparation. Talked a little bit about the modularity of the exam, but I think that will allow you to have better feedback to candidates so they can again brush up on the skills. So in terms of the syllabus has been updated in line with the actual role. Again, I think it was largely a decade ago when the role first came out, and it's evolved quite significantly with the introduction of lots of these regulated frameworks out there. So again, we're just looking to align that to make sure it's right for the role and we're assessing the right things for the candidates. We're also removing any sort of sole focus from a legislation or regulation perspective to making it inclusive for anyone who wants to take the exam, again, to be compliant for any of those regulatory frameworks across the globe. And that's me from the CSAM perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I'm just going to speak briefly about workforce professionalisation because I know we want to get on to questions. It's just to give people a bit of a heads up that there is a lot of activity globally at the moment talking about this concept of workforce professionalisation, which some people describe as how do we make cyber look and feel really similar to things like engineering and accountancy and medicine, where they're true professions with professional titles like charterships. We're having conversations with 4 or 5 national regulators at the moment around the world about this topic. And obviously in the UK, you'll probably be aware that there's already been some work in this space, and the first set of chartered individuals have been announced in recent months. For those in the UK, but actually you may not be aware that the UK Cybersecurity Council pathways are available to those outside the UK as well. There has been a lot of work done by CREST over the last few months to work with the council on a pilot. We completed that pilot a couple of months ago, and we're still at the moment waiting for confirmation from the Cybersecurity Council that we can go ahead and launch formally, but very soon we hope to be able to charter cybersecurity professionals in those traditional pen testing exams around InfoNAP as a starting point. There will be the introduction of red teaming, we hope, in due course. At the moment, the council have not approved red teaming as part of that chartership, and therefore SAS and SAM are not currently available within that scope, but we hope that they will be very soon. But a lot of work going on in this space, and we will keep the sector up to date on CREST's role as it evolves. Over to Heigor.
Thanks, Nick. So a little bit about the time frame. So when is it all happening before we move into some questions and answers as well? Next slide, please. So a bit of like high-level summary of what we talked you through today. So CRT has been launched back in November 2023. We also have launched now the CCT Inf and App written exams. These are live. We have the first candidates taking the past couple of weeks. Very positive feedback so far. We're now in May, where we're gonna open bookings for the CCT Inf and CCT App practical exams. This is gonna start from next week, so we're quite excited about this as well. We're releasing the CC SAS syllabus as well next week. Then we're expecting seatings for the new practical exam for CCT Inf and App to take place in late June. Meanwhile, we're also working on the deployment of CREST Drive. I've mentioned before that the new practical exams for Inf and App are going to have this functionality. So this is the first milestone for CREST Drive, and then shortly after we want to introduce that to the CRT exam as well, as I've mentioned before. And meanwhile, we're doing all this work that Ben has took you through on CC SAS and CC SEM, so we can have those exams launched as well very soon. Over to you, Andrew.
Great, thank you so much to our speakers today. We've got a number of questions to answer, so we'll be handing those over to our panel today. So the first one we had in was, and this is for Ian, is how will you make the experience good if we can't take our own machines in?
Thank you. Okay, so we've put quite a lot of thought into this in terms of how do we give the candidates the best experience we can in this new environment that we're setting up. There's a few different parts to this, so I will try and briefly cover them all. So as has been mentioned by quite a few people already, you won't be able to take your own laptops into this exam with your own tool. You will walk into a Pearson View Centre without anything, and you will sit down at one of their computers. This will give you access to virtual machines or a virtual machine that has a collection of tools on that you can use for the duration of the exam. For the CRT exam, each candidate will get a Kali Linux virtual machine, and for the certified level exams, each candidate will get a Kali Linux virtual machine and a Windows virtual machine, both preloaded with tools. Now, in order that you're not surprised and you're not spending the exam struggling to find out where all the tools are on these machines, how they work, and what they do, and all the little quirks that might be in there in terms of the file system layout, we will make these machines available as public AWS AMIs that anybody can access globally at any time. So if you're preparing for an exam, you can create an account in AWS, you can launch these AMIs and have your own versions of these machines to experiment with, play with, and learn the tools on. The only caveat with that is that where we've got licensed tools in the exam, for example, in CRT, we have licensed Nessus Professional and Burp Suite Professional. The license keys will not be included in those public virtual images. So just bear that in mind. So then when you book an exam, which you typically do through the Pearson View website, you will then be sent an email which will invite you to register for the CREST Drive. Now, CREST Drive is essentially a file upload service that allows you to upload files from the moment you book the exam all the way up until 24 hours before you sit the exam, that will then be made available to you during the exam. Now, the way the upload works is essentially a website, you'll set up an account, you log in, it'll be a little bit like Google Drive or something like that. There's no restrictions on what type of files you can upload, so you can upload notes, you can upload simple scripts. There will be a limit on the maximum size you can upload in total. It's probably not going to be a huge limit. I think we're thinking of something around 100 megabytes. And then when you've uploaded those, when you go and sit the exam, you'll log on to your candidate machines, and through a web browser in those candidate machines, you'll be able to download all of those files that you uploaded previously and use them during the exam. So we're hoping this will mean that the exam isn't closed book. It means you can take your own notes in. It means you can take your own scripts in, and have an experience that is a little bit closer to having your own laptop available. The other thing that is important to point out is that because this is an exam that's scalable globally and anybody can take it anywhere in the world at once, when you sit down in front of an exam, a personal environment for you is created. So your exam environment is yours. It is created just for you. It exists just for the duration of your exam, and then at the end of that exam session, that environment is destroyed. So there's no risk of any artifacts being left behind from anybody else in any previous sitting. There's no chance of any interference. It is purely your environment, and we can guarantee that it will be deployed consistently with no issues.
Right.
I'm just being reminded to hurry up a little bit. And the other important thing to mention is that because the practical exams are automatically marked, you should get your results in most cases in less than 24 hours, which I think is really important. I will leave that question there and we can move on to the next one.
Great, thank you, Ian. Really appreciate that. We've got lots and lots of questions coming in. So just to say, if we aren't able to answer your question in this Q&A, we will do follow up in the post event and publish the answers to those questions that we can. So one that came through that will be for Ben or Heigor is: does removing CCT Inf mean the CC SAS has to be a longer exam to cover the additional requirements that were previously covered by CCT Inf?
I guess the short answer is no, it won't be any longer than it is today, but we are making sure that the specific bits of INF that we wanted to be covered are in the syllabus with the new syllabus areas, and so that will be covered in the new CSAS exam. So those specific components that we thought are vital for the CSAS will now be in the CSAS exam. Sorry, the CCT INF. Ian, I don't know if you wanted to add anything either.
I think you pretty much just covered it. Essentially, we've analysed the exams. We've taken the bits we care about CCT Inf that are relevant to the SAS. We've put them into the SAS. The exam isn't getting any longer because of the time constraints for the new environment, but we have factored that into the way we've designed the exam. So we are covering everything.
Great, thank you, Ben and Ian. Really appreciate that. The next question is around: will the candidate VM virtual machine enable the candidate access to professional versions of common security testing tools such as Nessus Pro and Burp Suite Professional? So I put that to our panel to answer.
I can answer that. I think I mentioned it previously. Yeah, yes is the answer. So for CRT, they have access to Nessus Pro and they have access to Burp Suite Pro. I suspect it will be the same for the CCT Inf and App exams. Specifically, what professional tools we include in SAS, we haven't actually decided yet, but it is something we decide on an exam by exam basis, essentially.
Great, thank you, Ian. Next question: do candidates get a list of tools installed on the testing hosts prior to testing to help us prepare properly? I'll put that to the panel as well.
I think this one might be me again. So yeah,
Ian's in the hot seat this morning for us. Go ahead, Ian.
As previously mentioned, these candidate machines will be available as public AMIs and AWS, so you can essentially spin them up yourself before the exam while you're preparing and explore them. We are also, this isn't 100% confirmed, but we're actually considering going through some of the key tools in the boxes and providing you a list of tools that we've tested that we know work on those images. The reason we might be hesitant about saying all tools work is particularly with something like Kali Linux. When you install Kali Linux everything, you do sometimes get some odd tools that, just because there are hundreds of them, right? You do get some that don't quite work the way they should do. So we are considering providing a list of things that we've tested as well.
Great, thank you, Ian, for that. The next question: will CREST Drive enable candidates to bring custom scripts and/or tools into practical CCT level exams?
Yes is the answer to that. so long as they fit within the file size limits.
Great, thank you for that, Ian. Just working through the questions now. So someone's asking if they did the theory and screen space was an issue with tooling and questions in one screen. This will likely be harder when I'm trying to do work and not just read. Is there two screens in the Pearson VUE centres or something similar? So it's for when a candidate is taking the exams, obviously got the tooling and the questions, and are there two screens readily available within the centres for them to be able to kind of split the content?
No, but by default, you will only get one screen in the Pearson VUE test centres. I think that's just the way the Pearson VUE software works. We have specified a minimum resolution for those screens in order for it to be a reasonable experience, for you to be able to see the questions at the same time as being able to use a desktop.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Next question is around training providers. Will there be any further training providers aligned to the CCT level certifications aside from the Hack the Box partnership? Heigor, I think this might be one for you.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, that's what we're working towards. So we would like to bring training providers for all CREST exams. That's the goal, and we're in the process to get there.
Great, thank you. And obviously, as Heigor's just stated that, obviously we're always great to hear from any training providers that want to come on board as a CREST training provider. Another question: I have a valid CCT INF written pass from the old exam format. I was told this is still valid for the new format. If I take the new multiple choice and scenario exam through Pearson VUE, do I just need to pass the new scenario exam? Does it matter if I fail the new written exam since I still have a valid pass from the old format?
Yeah, I can take this one as well. So we are recognizing previous achievements in this case. So anyone who has a valid written when taking the new written exam, they would be exempt from the MCQ component, meaning that they would only need to take the scenario component. However, if you fail the new exam, that means you need to retake it as well. So you still need to pass the new scenario component. You would, in this case, be exempt from the MCQ part of this exam.
Great, thank you, Heigor. This may be one for you again, Heigor, or at least definitely one of our assessors. If a candidate decides to take the practical first, is there a timeline when the candidate is expected to take the written part and vice versa? Unfortunately, the exam type isn't mentioned here, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys on the panel.
Yeah, it does. I can take this one as well. So the current validity for each individual exam is 12 months, and this is maintained in the new structure. So yeah, once you pass the first component, you would then have like 12 months to pass the next component.
Great, thank you. And a nice easy one here. When is CREST Drive going live? Which I think we're all eagerly anticipating and waiting for. And it was on your timeline, Heigor, that you spoke to earlier.
So on the timelines, so there are two steps for CREST Drive. The first one, it's going to go live alongside the new CCT Inf and CCT App practical exams. And the first sittings, they're going to start in late June, early July. So that's the first date. And then after that, we're going to have a deployment to the CRT exam as well, which we're looking like probably a month or so after we launch the new practical exams for CCT Inf and App.
That's great. Thank you very much. Keeping with the theme of CREST Drive, so someone's asking about the open book design in CREST Drive. Does this mean during the exam you will have the ability to upload files and/or access the internet or Google, similar to other OffSec exams, or will we have to predict what resources, specific tools, or dependencies we may need before the exam and ensure they're uploaded to CREST Drive before the exam?
Yeah,
So
it's the. Oh, sorry, go on, Ian.
Okay, so you will not have internet access during the exam, and you will not be able to upload any new files during the exam. So you will have to upload what you want in advance. But because you have access to the candidate machines, you will know what tools you have on there, and you'll have access to the syllabus, so you know what stuff you potentially could come across during the exam. You should be able to work out what tools you need or want to use based on what revision you've been doing.
Thank you, Ian.
And
That's
just
great.
to
To
add to that, yeah, I was just going to say you're also gonna have access to the candidate machines as well ahead of the exam, so you can try and experiment as well the exam environment, which will help informing you what kind of files or notes you might find useful to upload.
Thank you, Heigor. A few final questions here. Will tailored feedback from CREST assessors be given for unsuccessful candidates for the scenario element of the exam?
Yeah, I can take this one. So on the new scenario exam, there is a breakdown, like a feedback breakdown. So you get your performance in each one of the sections that you're being tested. So that's a step forward in terms of feedback and the level of details that candidates are now getting from the new exam.
Great, thank you. The next question is, on the Pearson VUE website, the written and scenario exams are bundled together. Is there a way to only sit the scenario exam if you have a valid written exam pass from the old exam format?
Yeah, so this is similar to the previous question.
Yes.
Anyone with a valid written exam would be exempt from the MCQ component, meaning that you only need to take the scenario component of the new exam.
Great, thank you for that. We've had a few more questions coming in. We've got about a few more minutes left before we wrap up. Will there be more dates for the old CC SAS in hotels before it finishes?
Yeah, well, we have a date in June, and this is open for bookings. So we're monitoring the demand basically, and if needed, we will look into adding new dates.
Great. Final couple of questions. Is the certification validity period still 3 years, or has that been changed?
That has not been changed, so it's still 3 years.
Great. Question here, will there be any discounts for exams outside the current CREST member and promotional discounts, i.e. for individuals who are not part of CREST member organisations but are members of the armed forces, self-employed, etc.? So I'll put that to the panel as well. So I think in terms of, in terms of from my own perspective, obviously this is something that we have looked into and obviously introduced with our CRT launch in November, and we continue to discuss internally. Heigor, I know you may have some thoughts on this as well, but it's something that obviously we discuss as part of our launches each time we're looking and reviewing our product and how we put it to market.
I can pick up on that one, Andrew. So we're open to it. I mean, one of the beauty of the new model we have, which is more scalable and cost efficient to change, etc., is that we can now afford to do promotional discounts. Again, as a mission-based organisation, we are not looking to make money out of our exam portfolio, and in fact, we don't. And to the degree that we can do discounting, we will continue to do so. And I'll take that question back, and I think it's a valid point. I should also mention, while we're at it, that we're already seeing the demand rise significantly from our ability to offer internationally. The April month, we saw 3 times the level of people taking CRT as had ever been taken in the old mode in a single month. So we're seeing that demand fly, and again, with scale comes the ability again to continue discounting. So hopefully that will continue.
Great, thank you, Nick. And that brings us to the end of today's session, and a great point to end on there. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you giving us your time. As I said, this session has been recorded, and we will put post-event details on our website and across our social media, so keep an eye out for those. They will most likely be going out next week. We'll also be sending out a short survey just to understand about your experience today, so we can make it bigger, better and brighter for future CREST online exams. We will be doing more online events and more webinars, so do keep an eye out on our Eventbrite, on our website, and our social media where we'll promote these. I just want to say a massive thank you to all our speakers today, to Nick and Heigor from the internal team, and from Ian, Ben and team, our assessors. Thank you so much for bringing your time and your expertise to today's session. We really appreciate it, and we hope you've all enjoyed it and found it incredibly useful. Thank you.